Anyway, I don't know do any in this. But your fan base will probably kill me for it. Yeah, how could you not introduce you? But I don't.
Yourself?
I just jump.
Get the banjo out and
Yeah, I just jump straight to it and start chatting. Barry Leitch, am I pronouncing this right? Yeah, thank you very much for doing this. It was kind of impromptu how we decided to do it. I recently did a cover of one of your tunes. The Lotus Turbo Challenge intro, and then we started talking on Facebook, and then I was like, because we were talking about music and the industry and probably the good old days or whatever, and then I was like, well, how about we talk about this on one of these podcasts? So thank you very much, and you're very welcome. I'm very honored.
Thanks, I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I remember, I'd say we're probably somewhere around the same age, give or take, maybe 3-4 years or something like that.
Tell with the grey.
Yeah, it's starting here as well. Well, it started a few years back as well. I'm keeping it under control, but yeah, your name is associated with stuff like Top Gear and obviously Lotus and Gauntlet as well. For me, it sort of was more like Xenophobe and... was it a Silkworm as well?
Silkworm was one of those quick ones. It was like 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and they said, "Hey Barry, the guys that are doing Silkworm need a piece of music. If you can knock one out in the next 45 minutes, they'll have some music in the game." So,
well, that's the way it was, wasn't it? Though I mean, you started with, was it the C64?
Yeah, long time ago. I actually started on the BBC, but I didn't get anything published. I was on a 60.
Yeah, I was around that same time. Probably I was making my first attempts at music. I was probably still too young then to really know what I was doing, but I was working with the MSX and trying to program, music into that thing. What was doing music for the C64? Because that's a system I never had. Like, was it trial and error? Was there any tools for it or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, to get anything good out of it, you needed a custom music driver. There was a couple of available packages which I started using because I didn't have a music driver, and the results were kind of shitty. So that was what I got my first soundtrack published in, was a piece of music from. It was called Electro Sound. Was the package? A terrible piece of software.
There wasn't much available, so whatever you wanted to do, you really had to fend for yourself and. So, like, some people were making their tools at the time as well, their own tools, like just to compose or do graphics. It was
you had to have a programmer friend. You had to have a programmer friend and sweet talk him.
Yeah, and you had to be knowledgeable somehow yourself as well. That was a great thing about this time as well. And nowadays, like, I find I'm still doing development work, and I just find, well, it's not easy, but it's very easy to start.
What kind of stuff are you developing?
Sorry?
What kind of stuff are you developing?
I work for a company, a software company called SAP. They're a German company. They do enterprise ERP stuff. So at the moment, it's a lot of UI5 and that kind of stuff and JavaScript. And not super fascinating and exciting, but...
it's a job.
But
doing geek stuff.
Yeah, were you programming at the time yourself, or...?
A little bit, not much. Very basic. I think I managed to patch together some 6502 code to do a scrolling text message, and I had a programmer friend look at it, and he's like, "How the hell does that work? It shouldn't work. It's messy as hell." Hey, it works.
Yeah, I did one of these as well on the. It was on the Amiga. Where I just wanted to know somehow, how it kind of worked and how to do a bit at least. But at the time, you just had to know, even when you compose something, you just had to know that it was you could export it for somebody in a file format that was suitable. Like,
I could never get my head around programming on the Amiga when it switched to 16-bit numbers. That was too hard for me. 8-bit was about all I could compute.
Yeah, I was doing some assembler on the MSX as well. There was an 8-bit computer, and that was much easier. And then after that, I lost track. I just couldn't compete with, especially in the Amiga scene was just so
Yeah.
So amazing. Like, what a you probably done that as well. I mean, how did you get into the music industry? I would venture that you probably met some friends and then produced some stuff, send it to companies, or
Yeah, we made a shit ton of demos on the Commodore 64. There was CompuNet back in the day for the Commodore 64. It's kind of like the internet, but like a BBS thing, small sized. And we produced a shit ton of demos and made a lot of tunes, and sent them to all the companies. And it was a small scene, so everybody got to see everybody else's demos and pieces of music.
But it did help to have, obviously, a lot of friends who were into that as well and into doing their own stuff, graphics.
We used to swap, like we would go to a computer club once a week and swap all the games and demos, and plus you were sending discs to everybody across the world. You would get 5 or 10 packages in the mail a day just of discs from people. As a wee 14, 15-year-old, you're like, this is magic. Copy them all, send them back.
I know, I remember that. We used to do that as well. Not so much with the MSX because I was the only one who had one, but the Amiga. the Amiga. Yeah, I was the odd kid. My father worked for Philips, and they were making the MSX, so I had one before most people, and I was the only one who had one.
They were expensive too, weren't they? The MSX, they were like 300 quid.
Yeah, they weren't cheap computers, and they kind of arrived late as well. I think they were obsolete really by the time they arrived. And then you had obviously Commodore and Amstrad had a big hold in Europe already, so it was sort of a failed experiment before it started. But it's a fascinating history, actually. I
Didn't the MSX have a built-in compiler? Wasn't that one of its big features? Or am I thinking of something else?
No, I don't think that was the MSX. Could be. No, I don't think so. Because I remember getting extra software on floppy for that to program in assembler. But it was obviously a cartridge based system, but you also had tapes and floppies, and like there was loads of or different options for software. And then there was some Microsoft support already. Like it was sort of the ancestor to the PC in a way. Like it's a fascinating history. Like the more I read about it, the more I find like it was a collaboration between Japan and Microsoft, obviously. And yeah, just a really cool software. I have it running in the background actually, but
that's what it is.
Yeah,
nice.
I remember those demo parties as well with the Amiga. Like what a fucking great time it was just to be swapping stuff and exchanging ideas and seeing what other people were doing.
Yeah, well, everybody was creating and trying to outdo each other. It all stemmed from the Commodore 64, where, like in the music, people would keep improving their music driver to get some new effect or sound out of it. So when somebody did that, everybody else copied it, tried to do something more. And that constant leapfrogging was very creative.
Yes, I mean, I wasn't contributing much other than a few mods like on the Amiga, but like you said, it was just so creative and I don't know, it was super exciting. I mean, especially when you're young, I remember going to places like that and seeing all the equipment and gear, and my eyes would be like big balls, just going, oh my god, all these people are just so creative and amazing. Like, and I still meet a few every now and then, obviously via the internet. Like it's really cool to reconnect with some people that I would have seen or that would have heard of at the time, but it's hard to explain to even younger kids or even people in their 30s what a time it exactly was, because as soon as the console arrived and took over the gaming market, I don't know how much of a gamer you were with consoles, but
no, not with consoles. They were too expensive.
Likewise, yeah, but it's hard to describe to them the excitement that computer brought, especially if you're somewhat creative.
Well, the whole industry was created by kids and run by kids and played by kids. I mean, they were the consumers and the creators. There's never been anything else like it.
That's the thing, actually. It was most of those software companies were very, very young men and women, probably pre-18-year-olds running and programming. Like, how did you get into the game industry as a composer?
I just sent demos to everybody and pestered them, phoned them all up. I need to listen to my new demos because the old ones were shit. The new ones are much better.
So literally pester them until they listen to it and give feedback.
Yeah.
Well, that was
one
the
of them
way to
gave
do it. One of them gave in.
It was a lovely chap called Colin Fuge at Firebird Software. He phoned me up one day and he says, "This one tune you've done, I think I've got a game I can put that in. So how much do you want for it?" And I think I said 300 quid. I sold it for. And of course, those days, because I'd been phoning all the companies and you had to pay for long distance phone calls in Britain, it was the phone bill came to 300 quid. So as soon as the check came in, my dad just snatched it out. Man.
How old were you then?
I was 15 when he phoned me. It was 16 by the time the game came out.
Oh man, what a cut to get. And did you continue? Like, did it snowball from there, or was it?
No, because the game came out and Zap64 reviewed it, and they said, "Yeah, the music's a bit shit." So my career was over. I was 16 years old, and I had a career in writing music for video games.
Oh, and how do you recover from that?
I went off. I took a job as an apprentice engineer at Rolls-Royce, and after about 6 months of that, I was like, "This is shit, filing metal. This is boring as hell." So I took a computing course. It was iTech Training Centre, and they had a 2-year computer course. But because we already knew everything about computers, so this 2-year course, after 6 months there, I'd finished it. I'd done everything, and I was bored stupid. And so I went to college to do a degree in computing, but that was terrible because they were basically programming on punch cards. The education system hadn't caught up by that point. And then some of my buddies were making video games, so I said, "Hey, can I do the music for it?" He's like, "Sure, I'll make you a music driver and everything." So that was Marauder on the Commodore 64.
Oh,
so.
I remember Marauder,
Yeah. So we cranked that out, and Zap reviewed it, and they gave it like 89% or something for sound. So I was like, "Yes, I'm back in the game."
Yeah, it's quite. I'm sorry.
And from there, I managed to get a job with a game company.
What was that? Which company was it?
Oh, it was Catalyst Coders down in Portsmouth. I got paid £4,000 a year. It's probably about the same as unemployment was back.
You'd probably be better off, unemployed, yeah. Was it all C64 then?
Yeah, pretty much. Although when I was at Catalyst, we started doing some Amiga stuff, which was great because the Amiga had the soundtracker software, and you didn't have to have a complex music driver. Then it just leveled the playing field for everyone.
Yeah, I know some people made their own custom tools, but I mean, right off the bat, like stuff like Soundtracker was just amazing. Like when I discovered Soundtracker, I was just in heaven. It was just absolutely amazing. That was the one tool actually that got me a gig, in a demo group. We never did anything. We actually never published anything, but we're happy just making scrollers and little bouncing balls here and there, and scrollers and that kind of stuff.
You'll have to send me some of your mods. It'd be interesting to hear them.
I published a while back. I published a few of them. I redid them with a software called OpenMPT, and sort of just remastered them. But they weren't great. They're on my channel somewhere. Yeah, I should say I'll send them to you if you want. But yeah, it's music from the 90s. It sounds exactly as you'd expect.
I'm still good music from the 90s.
I know there was some killer, absolutely. How different was it? Because you did music for a variety of platforms.
Yeah. After Imagitech, after Catalyst Coders, after a couple of years, I was working for a company called Imagitech, and they were made mostly a conversion house. So if you had an arcade game and you wanted to put it on all the different computers, the Amiga, the Atari ST, 64 Spectrum, Amstrad, blah, 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 you would go to Imagitech and they would do it. So they needed to put the music across all these platforms. So we came up with a unified data structure. So basically we could create the music once and then port it really quickly to all these other computers.
Oh, wow. So you didn't have to rewrite the music?
Well, I would usually arrange it on the Amiga because it was so fast in Soundtracker, and then you just convert it into data statements for the drivers, and then recreate the instruments on each sound chip.
Oh, and that's really cool. Okay, yeah. Because I genuinely thought then that obviously to port music you'd have to recompose and just restart from scratch, but there was
much work.
Yeah. That's really cool, actually. So what was it? It was just you just convert just the data, the notes.
Yeah, you convert the notes you could see in Soundtracker just into data statements where you'd set the note length, play the note, change the note length if you needed, change instrument.
Import that in whatever tool on the platform, and then
An assembler, compile it, download.
tidy up, and wow, that's really cool. Oh fuck! I had a whole list of questions about what tools you.
There wasn't any tools. You had an assembler and you had to beg a programmer to fix stuff for you.
But how because you adapted a lot of music from other composers as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And
Did you have to work with the original guys, or was it just once the license was acquired by whoever was doing it, it was up to you really to?
it was usually up to me. I mean, some of them were bloody awful. I think I converted Your Own Tell's Supremacy to the PC.
Yeah.
He did this wonderful piece of Commodore 64 music. But I'm sitting in this little office at the time with no synthesizers, no audio gear, just a computer. And I've got the clock ticking because they need the music like within 2 days or something. And I would start off transcribing his tune and then I'd be like, fuck, this is just too hard. I can't be arsed doing this for, trying to get a note perfect for the next 3 days. So I would just make up the rest of the tune. I think I used his intro for Supremacy and then just wrote my own tune after that.
Yeah, that was a common thing with ports, I suppose. Like time was a factor, and then yeah. Oh well. So nowadays, I remember you were, if my memory serves me right, you were working on, was it Horizon Chase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Horizon Chase Turbo one, just finished that one. That's going on PlayStation 4, PC, and Nintendo Switch apparently too. So
there's a new version. I thought there was a portable version. It was a portable game.
There is a portable version on mobile. Horizon Chase is on mobile just now.
Yeah. And
Horizon Chase Turbo is just coming out.
Oh, so that'll be on PS4.
Yeah.
I remember seeing because I don't play on mobile platforms like at all, and I'm old fashioned. I just use a phone to ring, yeah. But I know I remember seeing a video of the game and thinking Outrun straight away. I was like, oh my, this is Outrun.
It's a really good game. Really.
I'm a sucker for anything Outrun. Like that was my thing. If I ever get an arcade room or an arcade machine, it'll have to be Outrun, and I got an Outrun and an arcade room now. But that was I'm a sucker for anything that looks remotely like Outrun. So I'll get that on PS4 actually.
I used to have a Gauntlet Dark Legacy arcade machine.
Of course you would.
But it was like £400 in weight, so it was a nightmare to keep moving it every time I moved house. So
they're big machines, yeah. Yeah, I think I have about 9 machines now.
Really?
I can't move.
No.
Yeah, I can't move house. That's it. I'm here. If the wife wants to go somewhere, she'll have to go without me. But do you still work much then in video games, music at all?
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, it's whenever one comes up. I mean, I mostly do kids' toys for the most part. I worked for Fisher Price for 4 years. That was a while ago now, but worked for them and I've been freelance ever since.
When you say kids' toys, you mean adverts, music? No.
The actual toys.
Oh, okay. Making the music for the...
Yeah, little chips.
Wow. So what's your setup for that, actually?
Shitty development kit. For want of a better phrase. Maybe edit that out. No, some of them are actually quite good.
Wow.
But there are some shitty ones.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you play at all still, or do you enjoy the odd game?
Oh yeah. I still play Supreme Commander Forged Alliance a lot. So
is that still around?
Yeah, there's an add-on package for it called Forged Alliance Forever.
Oh my god!
There's all these Russians play on it and stuff, so it's good to play.
I don't have much time to play. I still play the odd game every now and then. I'm playing a lot of Star Wars Battlefront these days, but yeah. Has the of course it must have, has the music industry, at least in video games, changed much still since you started?
Yeah, there's a lot more atmospheric stuff these days. it's all trying to set the mood for the player. I mean, you have these like Batman Arkham Asylum. I mean, that was a great game, and the music's so wonderfully complex and complicated, but you would never listen to it outside of the game, I don't think.
No, that was actually going to be my sort of my point, because the core of what I do at the moment is covers, and what I like about a lot of the music I cover is that they're sort of iconic. You can actually play them in your car, and you can hum them. You can recognize them. They do have a melody that is catchy and just recognizable. It's one of the criticism I have with a lot of games is that it's super atmospheric, but it's not something you'd listen to ever again.
No.
Some people would probably argue that they do. Yeah, I listen to it all the time, but yeah, you're one in a million. Yeah, is that? I mean, has it shifted from composers of tune to composers of orchestrated piece instead, or is there still room for old style composers like yourself?
I think it depends on the project. I mean, there's a lot of games that come out, especially the mobile games, where people just want something melodic and catchy, and
probably some indie games as well.
Yeah, a lot of that. There's actually one game you should check out. I don't know if you've played it or not. Stronghold Crusader or Stronghold.
I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, they have great soundtracks. I love those ones. Just medieval music.
Yeah.
It's nice, catchy. I've listened to that.
Yeah, I haven't played it at all. I think I have Stronghold a copy somewhere.
And check out the soundtracks on YouTube.
Yeah, was there much sort of competition between composers at the time? Because there was a few big names,
Definitely, of course, everybody wanted to be Rob Hubbard. I mean, Rob had these amazing composing skills, so everybody was trying to be as famous or good as Rob was. I mean, he's an incredible composer.
Yeah,
even to this day, I got some of his demos from his Kickstarter thing that he's been doing, and it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, if I think about that time, especially like stuff like the Amstrad, like David Whittaker was a name that just came up again and again. He seemed to be everywhere for a while. Is he still around? Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's working for a place in the UK now. He was at Electronic Arts with Rob for several years. But yeah, we used to joke that David Whittaker got his music in so many games that he must have just some driver that he just pressed the button and it generated a tune.
Generates a Whittaker tune. Yeah, he was everywhere. It was just amazing. Yeah.
There's definitely money to be made if you had a good music driver. I think his music driver was the fastest one on the market. He used the least amount of processor time, so he had the market cornered on that.
Oh, so had he made his own driver?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Very talented.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's. That's just sickening when people can do that and compose, and you probably could do graphics as well at some point, I'm sure.
Probably. He's probably good looking and can dance and all of everything.
So I remember when we chatted online, we were talking about just licensing in general. Do you? I mean, you've done an insane amount of tunes, or adapted an insane amount of tunes as well, like on different platforms. Like, do you still get some income from it, or nothing?
I can barely get money for the stuff that I do own.
Yeah, no, but that's just a general misconception about a lot of composers, like especially in video games, is that the licensing laws are pretty fucked. Like, you give up all the rights whenever you work on a game, don't you?
Well, it all depends on your contract of employment and which country you were in, because different countries have different laws.
Yeah, art licensing. I worked in art licensing as well for a while. I do a lot of painting, and I was licensing some of my art to different companies, and it's a fucking nightmare, because every country is different. And I've done a shitload of stuff on a shitload of platforms and mediums, and I'm not getting any money whatsoever from it. Yeah.
I remember getting a lovely email from, it was like the head legal counsel of ASCAP or something, some huge organization. And the top lawyer emailed me, and they're like, "So we've changed the law so that any web game that is played online, the music is streamed from them. That's classified as a broadcast. So you can get royalties, and we'd love to give you some royalties. Can we just see your contract that shows that you own the rights to the music?" And of course, I'd retained the rights to the game they were talking about. But the contract said that they were allowed to use the music within context of the game without having to pay royalties for it, which broadly covered the streaming or performance is what they classified it as, I think. So kids were like, "And you're not getting any money. Thanks. Have a nice day."
That's really weird. Yeah, and then now I mean, as a YouTuber, you're facing a lot of obviously copyright strike and claim, which I never bothered me, and I usually agree. You know, it's.
I think a lot of people don't understand the whole fair use thing, and
yes, yeah.
I mean, because Horizon Chase is a good example of that, because I retained the rights to the music, and all these kids post videos of the game with the music playing. So it's hard to differentiate between who's doing an actual review of the game and who's just posting the video of the game, or making the soundtrack available for free. So, like the CD Baby is the company that published the soundtrack through. They have the YouTube police program that goes through and puts adverts on every video that has the music in it. Which also will issue copyright strikes if you don't allow them to put the advert on. Which is, it puts me in an awkward situation sometimes, because you've got guys that are like, "Hey, we're trying to do a review of the game. We need some paperwork that says we're allowed to have your music in the game," or things like that. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's always whenever some of the covers I've done have been claimed by either, well, probably not the original composer. Usually it's whoever owns the right to the game or something like that. So it'd be Disney or Sony or whatever. And I'm always fine with it. That's never been a problem, because ultimately it's not my tune.
But if you're doing a cover version, I mean, obviously there should be some trickle back to the composer or right holder.
I think there should be some trickle back to the composer. So I don't know where that goes afterwards, you know, once it's been claimed. What I do is usually I license them on SoundDrop. So I think it's a tenner per piece, per tune you do. So, and then whatever happens after that, I don't know. I don't know if any of it goes back to the composer. But I was going to say, YouTube, if you get claimed. So the sound right obviously go back to whoever the right holder is, but the video rights remain with me. So essentially you still get some trickle, money from the video rights, unless you're with an MCM, one of those multi-network channel, and they obscure that totally. So all of it goes to the rights holder. But yeah, at least the video composition for my covers go to the stay back with me. But it's funny, because you see a lot of reviews with, or whatever video it is, with music in the background, and every time I want to scream like, guys, that you can't just use somebody else's composition, and it's I'm sorry, it's not fair use. It just isn't. And I know some of these videos sometimes, even when they're historical, explanations of whatever or reviews, they can be up to an hour, like, of just used background music, and I don't think people realize what fair use is, like, and in cases like that, I mean, the composers get nothing, absolutely nothing. I don't think, it's a mess, YouTube at the moment, still for right and licensing.
But it's a step in the right direction. It's just such a complex thing. I mean, the record companies for years have had the laws written to benefit them anyway. So it's going to take a long time to undo all that mess.
Have you had much battling to do yourself for rights or for licensing like that?
A couple of times. There was one there was a little 14-year-old kid in Hong Kong who was posting game soundtracks online, and I'd been watching his page, and I saw that he'd posted that next week I'm going to release Horizon Chase, and so I messaged him. I'm like, dude, don't release it. I'm telling you, don't post it all on YouTube. And he didn't. After some deliberation and threats from him and stuff, because he's 14, he's like, "What you fucking gonna do?" I'm in Hong Kong, you know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these pages actually, or channels that just actually just put the music from the game that can and they get I don't know, hundreds of thousands of views, and that's a few $100s for them in their pocket that from something they didn't make, you know.
Well, that's why I publish the stuff through CD Baby, so it catches that stuff online. I was using DistroKid before that, which is a nice system, but they didn't have the YouTube police. And to be honest, I mean, from the Rise and Chase soundtrack, this YouTube has been the biggest earner for it.
Yeah.
Over CD sales or people buying it, streaming on Spotify, where you get a millionth of a penny every time someone listens to it.
Yeah. Also, you mean the whenever something gets claimed, that's been an earner for you? Is that what you mean?
Aye.
Wow, that's really interesting. Actually, that's good to hear, because sometimes you just don't know when a video gets claimed, you just don't know where it's going. So you're going. How does that work? You're going to CD Baby, and then they just look after all the.
Aye, but it costs you. I mean, you have to spend like $140 every time you put an album out.
Yeah, it's the same with Soundrop. Whenever I put an album cover is there. It's about it's a tenner per track. So if it's 14 tracks, it's 150. But I mean, you want to do it the right way as well. You know, like I said, like they're not my tunes I cover. You know, they're somebody else's work, and you know it takes me a few weeks to do, but still, you know, it's not my original work. So I want to do it right.
I think Bandcamp has that option as well. You can tag another composer if you co-write something with them. Because I did a Top Gear / Horizon Chase CD thing for when I was down in Brazil, and Nino Mega Driver played guitar on all the tracks. So I was like, dude, I'll give you, half the money from the sales, and you could tag him on each track.
Oh, okay, that's cool to know. I'm gonna make a note. I didn't realize that, so I'm gonna do that afterwards.
Sure, Bandcamp.
Yeah, I'll check afterwards. Actually, that's good to know, because I've always been at odds with Bandcamp. I put a lot of stuff on Bandcamp, but I usually go through Soundrop first, and then whenever it's on Soundrop, I do on Bandcamp. Soundrop distributes to stuff like iTunes and Spotify and all these, but
Bandcamp's nice. I mean, and it's only 15%, but when you see that check, you sold some for $6.99, and they took 15%, and now you're getting like 33 cents. And you're like, what happened to the rest of it? It feels like such a huge amount, even though it's only 15%.
But that's great to hear. I didn't realize Bandcamp was doing that, because I've always been. I was never sure how licensing worked on Bandcamp, because you can actually just upload anything. Obviously, if it's yours, all good and well. But if it's something like a cover, then I'm not sure how it works. But if you can tag or share,
I think you can. I mean, I could log it and check if you want.
I'll do it afterwards. I'll double check. But wow. So what are you working on at the moment, or can you even share?
I don't know if I'm allowed to share. I'm actually working on a cover of an old Amiga game for a Kickstarter project.
Oh, wow, cool.
Some Amiga guys are doing a Kickstarter thing that I've probably said too much already. They're probably
I'm under DNA as well at the moment, so yeah, I can't. I've probably said too much about another project as well a while back, so I was I don't know if you come across that often. I was talking to a friend of mine in the States. You're based in the States, aren't you?
Aye,
Ohio. And over there, the culture of gaming in general is Nintendo. That's what they grew up with. That's what they have. And I remember we having a discussion about what system was actually prevalent in Europe at the time, and they were going like, "Oh, you guys at Sega," and Sega was the Nintendo of. And I was trying to explain to them. I said, "Actually, no, it wasn't. It was computers that we had. Most of it was computers." And I think, I mean, we talked about it early on, but I mean, what a time it was to create anything. Even people who weren't necessarily gifted in creating stuff just wanted to try stuff. And I maybe it's me getting old. I don't see that anymore. I don't see that excitement, and there's still be very creative people, and if you are, there's all the tools now on PC to be creative, but I don't see these semi-creative ones trying out something.
No, there's probably not more of that. I mean, people use the technology in different ways now, though. I mean, someone might have written a piece of music before, they might be like, fuck it, I'm going to get into some cryptocurrency mining or something and just do something different with her.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, or maybe I'm just getting old and grumpy and...
Well, a lot of them play online, a lot more than we would ever dream of playing online. I've seen my kids sit and play Battlefield online for hours and hours and days. And like, you want to do something else?
And they kick your ass after 5 minutes already. Yeah, I know.
I don't dare play online with 12-year-olds and beat me.
So what's your setup nowadays? What do you work on?
I got a kick-ass PC, best PC for 100 miles, and 3 monitors, 27 inches, 1440p. I got backup servers and data, a media server somewhere with a security camera stuff all set up. Geeky stuff, things you potter around with.
But it's not a big music studio then. It's quite minimalist.
I used to have a bunch of synths and 24-track mixing desk, but after everything's done on computer these days, so you just use all software.
Yeah, I had some synths as well, and I just got rid of a lot of stuff, and it's amazing. You can do pretty much anything from a laptop as well nowadays, and that accounts for chiptune or from fully orchestrated to 8-bit stuff.
And if you need a guitarist or a live instrument, you can always bring them in and deal with the guitarist sitting fucking around for 20 minutes while he gets the right tone for his guitar.
That's what I have. I have a collection of...
Wow. I'm going to give guitarists a bad name, but god damn, you guys can spend a lot of time dicking around.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not I started with guitar, but I play a lot of mandolin, obviously, and all these kind of funny yokes. But I
loved the work. That was great. I mean, I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. I've been meaning to do it for ages and ages. Just finding the time. Like, so many tunes I want to do. So many great memories and tunes, especially on the Amiga and the PC as well. But it's finding the time. I think I've a waiting list of 7 years at this stage.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll be busy. It's great. It's my best gig ever, this YouTube stuff, I have to say. Yeah. I've been a musician for about 30 years, and I've played live, I've played concerts, I've played here and there, and to the point of getting sick of it. I was full-time for a while. Didn't enjoy even a second of it. It was just too stressful. But going on YouTube was actually the best gig I ever started a few years back, because everything is on my own terms now, so I can do something when I want, how I want it.
My buddy Nino Mega Driver, he does heavy metal covers of games.
Yeah.
He lives down in Brazil and just cranks out album after album of all these great heavy metal covers. And
there you go. Yeah.
Following after time, I think what you're doing is great. It's just something different. And I know that the videos must take you fucking ages to do, because I've dicked around with video editing, and it's a time hole.
Yeah, you get better at it. Like the first few were just a nightmare of juggling stuff and not even understanding how the software works and discovering stuff. Now, actually, the video editing is fairly quick. Yeah, it's the music. It's the editing of the music itself, like mastering and all that kind of stuff, that takes me the longest, because obviously, sometimes you have to find your own arrangements if it's stuff like from, especially from Nintendo stuff, like all the tracks come at once, like they're meant to be looped really quickly, so there's no progression. So you find an intro arrangement and outro and that kind of stuff. So that takes a while. But Amiga stuff in general had very fully arranged tunes. There's not
everybody wanted to create these bookended pieces at the start and an ending.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, the tunes I was writing as well. Like you'd make a story in your head as well of what the tune was about and how it evolved. And what's your favorite tune then that you've done of that era?
That I've done.
If you have one.
I kind of like some of the Utopia pieces. Those were fun to do. I had kind of carte blanche to write whatever I wanted, and I had carte blanche to do whatever I wanted on any of the projects. They're like, just give us some music. Except Impossible, that was an awful one. They were like, we want you to use the Monty on the Run music, but make it like 90s dance music. So I was like,
that's a fucking nightmare. Yeah.
And it was a shitty tune when I finished it.
Somebody was one of the first comments on that Lotus cover. Somebody said, "Do Impossible next." You get that a lot. Like people going, "Yeah, I'll do this next," and every time I want to go, "Yeah, but you fucking do it." Do you know how long it took me to pull that one off? At least acknowledge it first. But at
least you can pull up the mod file and see all the notes and everything. So
yeah. Well, now I still can't read music, so I do everything by ear a lot of the time. MIDI has been a great help. There's a lot of very, very clever people that have adapted a lot of stuff into MIDI, so it makes things easier. But yeah, for some stuff you have to open the mod file and then and start from there. Like I think the Speedball 2 cover I did it like that because there was no MIDI for it.
To the PC, I
remember that. Yeah, that was a decent adaptation actually, because those sounds were funky. Yeah, that was a funky soundtrack.
That MT32 sound card was years ahead of its time. I mean, it was synthesizer on a sound card. It was the best thing since the Commodore 64.
I remember when my dad got his first PC with a proper soundtrack, like a Sound Blaster, and he brought it home and he had a copy of Dune, the original Dune game, and the music was made by Stefan Pick. Amazing soundtrack. And that was my first encounter with a PC, a working PC, and that game was just, well, I'm a sucker for anything Dune anyway, so.
Yeah. It was a fun game. It was the first real-time strategy game as well.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it had point and click and strategy, and there's elements of different stuff. Yeah, so, but I'm actually I had a question. Oh, I remember because you mentioned that when we were chatting, you have a huge following in Brazil.
It's weird,
don't you? Because I've had an influx of followers from Brazil. Like we're talking about 10,000 that came over like almost overnight, or maybe 6 months. But what is it with Brazil?
Brazilian gamers are really, really passionate. It's very much like the UK was in the 80s. I mean, these guys love their video games. And consoles like the Super Nintendo had such a long shelf life in Brazil because, like, the PlayStation 1 came out and it was really expensive. So they're like, fuck it, we'll just keep playing the PlayStation. I mean, the Super Nintendo. Yeah. They've got all the games for it, and they were cheap, free. They even had pirated cartridges. I mean, not just ones that allowed you to play pirated games, but they actually pirated the full cartridge, which would sell for a third of the cost of the real cartridge.
Cheeky.
People were bringing them to me when I was down there, like, "Can you sign this?" I was like, "That doesn't look real." Like, yeah, it was amazing.
But yeah, they're super enthusiastic about anything that involves Brazil. Like they're just passionate people. I do a lot of surfing, and I watch a lot of surfing competitions online. Like, and they're super passionate. Like it's what is it called? The Brazilian Storm or something like that. They want to take over the world. They're fantastic people. They're but even with gaming, they are super enthusiastic, to a fault sometimes. But that's just how people are. Like, but there's one thing I love about them is when they share something online, they copy all their friends and family on it. Like, so one share goes to 100 people straight away. Like, it's quite amazing. Yeah, no, I love Brazilian folks. Guys.
Lovely people. I mean, they did everything to make me feel welcome when I was down there. I loved the place. It's a little scary, you know, because you read all the crime stats and you're like, okay, so 74 people get murdered in this city every day. Am I going to be one of them?
Oh, were you there then? When was that?
Yeah, I went down. It was a year and a half ago for Video Games Live. They did a couple of concerts in Rio and Belo Horizonte.
I think I saw a video of that. Yeah, you're on stage.
Scott's guy on stage with the Brazilian flag, looking bewildered.
That was it.
People cheering.
Do you go back to Europe at all, or?
Nah, been back a couple of times since I left, but
yeah. How long have you been in America, Adam?
It's like 23 years, 24, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I've been in Ireland. Like, I was born and raised in France. I've been in Ireland about 22 years now. So.
Yeah. Lost your French accent.
They kick it out of you. I'm telling you. Yeah, forcefully. But I go back every now and then. But yeah, obviously, your heart is over there now.
Whereabouts in France were you born?
I was born. Well, I'm from a place called Saint-Malo in Brittany. North Brittany. Yeah, and I used to go to England quite a lot in Cornwall. I had friends there. My mother used to send me over. That's where I saw my first C64 actually. The kid in the family had a C64, so that's where I discovered the platform. Yeah, it had a great sound chip. Coming from the MSX with that just square wave. Which is okay. It sounded like arcade machines, you know, like the Arkanoid and Taito and stuff. But yeah, listening to the C64 was just magical. Like, there's some great music on it.
It's funny you mentioned the arcade games there, because I worked at Atari and I got to work with the guys that did all the old Atari arcade games. And the sound drivers for that were just incredibly horrendous. I mean, they were bare bones is an understatement. I mean, these guys basically writing assembly language just to make a sound every note.
Yeah, but the MSX was very much like that. There was a few trackers later in the life of the MSX, but most of it was either custom written or it was assembler programmed. And a lot of the arcade machine actually were sharing that. It was the Yamaha 8910 chip or something like that, so a lot of the arcade machines...
Or the AY chip.
The AY 8910. And then, a lot of the arcade machines had that chip in the early days, like, and then iterations of that. I repair my own PCBs here, so... I come across them fairly often. Like, but yeah, the sound drivers, there's fuck all on them. Like, it's just an AY chip, and that's that. You know.
I've actually got to write a piece of AY music this week. I got roped into something.
How do you go about writing a piece for that? And is there stuff available that you write?
Actually, there's a piece of software. There's a tracker editor for it. Which is good and it's bad, because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, I can put the note data in like 10 seconds, but it's going to take me like 3 days to fuck around and get all the instruments right. And I keep thinking, it'd be just so much easier if I had my old assembly code, because then I could do what I wanted, instead of...
But that's another good point. I mean, making your own instruments was also a requirement. Like, there was no given instruments, so you just had to fuck around with the sound chip just to get a proper sound first and then compose.
Yeah, because you'd want to get the most out of the chip, so you'd want to put like a tiny little piece of white noise at the beginning of your bass note, so your bass would go chum 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 chum, and so it'd sound like hi-hats playing, and then you've got your kick drum, and you could put an arpeggio between the kick and the snare and make it sound fuller. And
white noise for snare as well, like, or one of those kind of crescendo or dropping sounds.
Yeah, you messing with the pitch. And
Yeah, I remember that. I used a lot of stuff like that for those tricks for my existing cover. So when I hit the banjo with the brush, I actually it's the sound is very different actually when you hear it. So I run that through just a white noise generator as a trigger, and then with the dry wet balance, I still retain some of the banjo sound, but it's a lot of white noise and overdrive. I run that to a guitar overdrive as well, just to get that drum sound, or close to a drum sound. But that's a trick that I inherited from the Amiga, actually.
Nice. Actually, I saw there was a competition just the other week where they had the people use Commodore 64s, and they were only allowed to use the triangle waveform. And people were creating these incredible sounds just from modulating the frequency. In incredidible ways. It was insane. I think you've got to look it up and look for the winner. The winning piece was like, God damn, how much time did he spend on that?
Because what was that called? The competition? Do you know? Or
I don't know, 11-bit. I'd have to look it up. I'll send it afterwards.
That'd be cool. Yeah, actually, I'll put that in the video description maybe afterwards. What do you make of this sort of resurgence of retro and what they call chiptune, which annoyed me to no end when I first heard it?
It's nice, it's cool to see people enjoying the music and listen for the melody.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and some very, very crafty and talented people writing these pieces now. I remember the first time I heard chiptune, I was like, why do you call it chiptune? They're called tunes. That's what we called them back then.
Yeah. I had someone send me one the other day. It was a piece of music that he said this was definitely on it could play on like the Super Nintendo hardware or something. And I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, there's about 16 channels of music playing here. No way in hell that played on the original hardware.
Yeah. They were saying that, what was it? Shovel Knight, when Shovel Knight came out. A lot of people are saying it can run on the original Nintendo hardware. I was like, no, it can't actually. I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about. But the chiptune term is just, I don't know why it annoyed me. It's just at the time, we're just calling them tunes or whatever, melodies or composition, because that's all we had. It wasn't a matter of programming stuff on it. Well, it was, but it wasn't a quirky or attempt at being sort of cool or whatever. That's all we had.
It was the closest thing we had to music that was being created, because at that time in 1983, 84, the only way you could create music was to have a bunch of buddies and go and rent some time in a recording studio and make something.
Yeah.
And then along came the Commodore 64, and people could create music with just one person, and it was a small synthesizer chip, and if you wanted a voice that sounded like a violin, well, you can kind of get one that sounds like a violin.
Yeah, that's all we had. So it wasn't a matter of trying to write chiptune. It was just that was it. Did you ever? Were you ever a performer yourself? Did you?
Nah, I can't play with
piano or anything like that.
I did have a band once. Yeah, we played at one of the Imagitech parties. I think I played keyboard for a good part of it, and I might have sang one song, but I think I've destroyed all the videos of that.
No. Oh yeah, but it's interesting because I started music with computers as well, and then I wanted to try actual instruments, and it was the most infuriating and disappointing experience of my life, because I could compose entire 4-piece sections on the computer on the Amiga, and then I had a guitar and I couldn't get two notes together without starting get finger bleeding, and it was completely demoralizing. I hated the guitar for the first year at least.
Well, there's a reason I sequence everything, because if I played it, nobody would listen to it.
Dude, thank you very much. I'm going to let you go back to your work or whatever you are doing here.
Cool.
I don't want to take too much of your time either, but thank you very much for agreeing to do this. Like I said, it was just a very light-hearted chat about not much, really.
How's the weather there in Galway?
It wasn't too bad recently. We had a big snowstorm recently, a couple of weeks back. I've never seen that here, and nobody had ever seen that here either. It was quite, it was quite something. And when I say something, there was like 6 inches of snow. You know.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. People get very dramatic here about any sort of extreme weather. I don't know. Scotland is probably more extreme in its weather patterns, but Ireland is quite mild. So anyway, I'm used to heavy snow and cold and heavy heat from France. So the weather here doesn't quite faze me. It rains a lot, but you make do with it. Dude,
that's good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, and we'll have to do this again maybe if you want.
Yeah, do another cover of one of my tunes. Or I'll get you to play banjo on something.
There you go, anytime. Barry Leitch, thank you very much, and see you, folks.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.